Last Thursday morning, I spoke with Frances Byrne from Early Childhood Ireland. We were talking about this report called Pathways to a Quality Support and Assurance System for Childminding in Ireland. And this report recommends the registration, regulation and inspection of home-based paid childcare for anybody who is minding 3 or more children that are not related to them. As we were telling you on Thursday, there's about 35,000 childminders in this country, and they are minding approximately 88,000 children. But there are only 120 of those 35,000 childminders actually registered with TUSLA, which is the Child and Family Agency. And Frances was making the point that this new system for childminding in Ireland would offer reassurance to parents that basic protections and standards will be in place in both centre and home-based care settings. And they were urging the Department of Children and Youth Affairs to ensure that there is a communications plan in place about these changes as soon as possible. Well, I'm joined on the line this morning by Bernadette Orbinski Burke, who is Chief Executive of Childminding Ireland. She's also chair of a working group on reforms and supports for the childminding sector. Bernadette, good morning.
Good morning, Tommy, to you and your listeners.
And nice to talk to you again. Obviously, I think you're welcoming this report as well, and I know that your organisation are holding meetings all over the country now to get feedback on the proposals of this report.
That's right, Tommy, and just to clarify that Childminding Ireland is the national representative body for childminders, and I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to continue the conversation on childminding with you. The working group that you're referring to is the working group that produced the report, and Childminding Ireland chaired that working group. So we have intimate knowledge, obviously, of the workings of the working group and the proposals made by the group. As you were saying, there are an estimated 35,000 childminders in the country, and only 120 are registered with TUSLA. And I really wanted to make the point that rather than childminders not registering, there is no system for the vast majority of childminders to register with. You can only register with TUSLA if you're minding 4 or more preschool children. If you're minding less than 4 preschool children, there's no system. So not being registered with TUSLA doesn't mean that a childminder's practice is substandard. There's a lot of high-quality childminders, for example, the members of Childminding Ireland out there. And these childminders are self-regulating in a vacuum. And just to illustrate the point, if I may, the members of Childminding Ireland all have Garda vetting. They have insurance for childminding, and new and renewing members sign up to a code of ethics. And the board of Childminding Ireland have recently added to the membership criteria. And whilst the majority of our members have paediatric first aid training, from July 2019 it will also be a requirement for membership. And the board have also asked members to do an online child protection introductory course. It's an hour long. You can leave it and go back to it. And this will also be a membership criterion from July 2019. And just to say, we're very proud of the members of Childminding Ireland and the quality practice that they represent.
So regulation, there is some already in place, and that's going to be improved, as you mentioned, from July next year and so on. The big fear factor I found from speaking with Frances on Thursday was a lot of childminders who are minding in their own homes, particularly less than 4, in other words, 2, 3 children. The big fear they have about any form of regulation, Bernadette, is that it's going to become so labour intensive and, so matter of fact, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, that it's going to make it almost impossible for them to do what it is they're supposed to do, which is mind children responsibly.
Absolutely. I mean, what Childminding Ireland wants is a system of support so that you're supporting childminders to do the absolutely brilliant and unique work that they do. The board and staff of Childminding Ireland believe passionately in childminding. And so in order to ensure that the childminders are heard and their concerns are taken into consideration by the government, we're holding a series of network groups throughout the country. We'll be meeting with members and parents and anyone who isn't currently a member of Childminding Ireland but is childminding and may consider joining in the future. We'll collate together all the views and opinions of the people at the meetings and feedback directly to the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. And we'll come back to you, Tommy, when we're in your area as well, so that your listeners, anyone interested, can come along. And it's absolutely vital to communicate that no decisions have been made at this point, that the working group created 20 proposals, and an action plan will be put together by the department, but that's not until December of this year. So we have the opportunity to influence, to avoid, as you described there very eloquently, this possibility that you're going to be struggling so much with paperwork that you won't actually have time for the child. I think everybody wants to avoid that. Certainly the working group want to avoid that, and from speaking to the department, they're also very keen to ensure that that doesn't happen as well.
Do you think there's also a need, Bernadette, the rules and the regulations and the laws as it stands is that if you're a grandmother or a grandfather or a brother or a sister of the children you're minding, there's no onus on you to register. I mean, a child is a child, a childminder is a childminder, so why make fish of one and flesh of another?
Yeah, I think certainly as things currently stand with the proposals, it's proposed that grandparents providing childminding services to their children are not within the suggested changes. Now, if grandparents wish to become childminders and mind the children of other families, there's absolutely nothing to stop them joining in the system. But the expression we used was kinship care, that it's unusual that grandparents would be paid the market rate for caring for children, and as such they would fall outside the proposed definition of childminders.
Now, you are the Chief Executive of Childminding Ireland, and as I say, you're also very involved in this committee that put together this pathway to a quality support and assurance system for childminding in Ireland. Do you believe that where we are at the moment needs improving?
I do. I really believe that we need to be working in terms of child protection and child safeguarding. I think we do need to have some form of system that further protects children. I think also childminders themselves, I mean, we recently did a survey of our own members, and 59% agreed that there should be registration regardless of the number of children that are being minded, and 26% didn't know, and the balance said no. So, I mean, I think childminders themselves who are not minding 4 or more, I think would like the recognition of the quality work that they do. It's very hard if you're not minding 4 children and you're asked the question, are you registered? And the answer is no. And it does sort of imply that perhaps you're not meeting an appropriate standard, which absolutely isn't the case in the vast majority of certainly our members. And also there's the parents. I mean, one thing that we discovered, we did a survey. It was coordinated by Childminding Ireland, and we got 3,630 responses from parents who were using childminding services. And almost 50%, 48% I think it was, almost 50% of them, their annual household income was €50,000 or less in a year. So those parents could potentially be benefiting from the affordable childcare scheme when it's up and running. But naturally, public money won't be given out unless there's some quality assurance.
Sure. And naturally,
so those parents could be, so I think taking, the children, the childminders and the parents together, we need a system, but what's absolutely key is that system supports childminders and childminding and doesn't, destroy the very thing it's trying to protect.
We got so many texts and emails from creche owners. I know you don't represent the creche industry, but they were saying it's not a level playing pitch. They are absolutely bound by very strict guidelines and regulations, and that a lot of their time is spent at the coalface, as you say, with the paperwork and all of that. So the last thing I suppose we want to do is replicate what problems are in the creche industry with the childminding industry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, as you say, it's a totally different model of childcare. So what is suitable or unsuitable for one is certainly not going to be a good fit for the other. And I know that a lot of people working within the creches, are struggling with that challenge. And I know that TUSLA are working hard on a new framework to try and address that it's more finely tuned and a better balance. But our only focus in Childminding Ireland is childminding.
Yeah.
So,
do you see? I mean, within the context of childminders, would it be too archaic to suggest, or too drastic, that there would be things like unannounced visits to registered childminders to make sure that everything is in order?
Well, we don't know yet. As I say, at this stage, it's very much an information gathering exercise, and we would be speaking to childminders and parents to get their views. But it depends on the nature of the visit as well. If it's seen as a supportive visit, to help you improve your service where needed and to acknowledge your good practice where it's seen. It doesn't need to be the sort of almost entrapment type idea or fear that some people may have. But again, there's a lot of work to be done between now and when anything comes into place to ensure that we develop a model that's going to work most effectively. Yeah.
So the message to childminders out there who aren't registered with TUSLA in the context of minding 4 or more children, or any childminder out there who's either minding the sister's child or the brother's daughter, whatever it might be, you're saying to them, look, embrace the idea of collective decision making. Let's put the best foot forward and come up with the best proposal.
Absolutely. And if I could just say, there are supports currently available as well. We have a support line on 01287 8466, and that's operated by former childminders with childcare qualifications. We've got an email, support@childminding.ie, and 2 nights a week there's an out-of-hours support line run by childminders with over 10 years childminding experience. Childminding Ireland members get draft policies and procedures so they can adapt it to their own service. We have a members forum on Facebook so that you can chat to other childminders and discuss issues and ideas as they arise, because it can be quite an isolated profession, as I'm sure you can imagine. We run training courses and so on. So there are supports there, and it's important to talk to other childminders and not to be worrying, to come out and talk to everyone, and we'll gather up the information.
Learn from each other. And
exactly.
Finally, these nationwide meetings, when do you suggest they're going to start, and more to the point, when will they finish?
Absolutely. Well, we know that July and August is a bad time to try and get people together, so we're out at the moment to our members asking them to suggest venues and areas that would be a good meeting place. So in the next couple of weeks we'll start. Now, it will take a little while, obviously, to get round everyone.
Country, yeah.
But we'll be starting in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Well, look, when all of the information is collated and we have more to say, obviously we'll have you back on with us. But for
Thanks,
now,
Tommy.
Bernadette, thank you so much for joining us today.
A pleasure.
Take care. That's Bernadette Orbinski, Burke, Chief Executive of Childminding Ireland, and also the chair of that working group on reforms and supports for the childminding sector, which, by the way, was established by Minister Catherine Zappone. And they had their first meeting, I think it was in October of 2016, and that report from the working group was launched just last Monday by the Minister herself. So there are changes afoot, but I would say the last thing to do if you're a childminder is don't get panicky or worried. It seems to me like organisations like Childminding Ireland and Early Childhood Ireland and other large organisations are going to try and work to find the best possible formula to make sure that every child under the care of anybody, irrespective of whether they're related to you or not, whether they're getting paid for doing it or not, that your child is in safe hands, which at the end of the day is what it's all about.